Test. Okay, cool. Ooh. Episode 90, Book 9, Effects of the Remedy. How close to the end are we? Not super close. Because Book 9, Book 10, and then we have conclusions. I don't want it to ever end. Uh, Welcome to my read along. Again, I will be posting links to some Georgists resources in the description. I hope you check those out and learn more about the ideas of Henry George so that we can bring justice to the world. I say it so simply, but I believe it so deeply. All right, so Book 9, Effects of the Remedy. We have Chapter 1 of the effect upon the production of wealth, of the effect upon distribution, and thence upon production, the effect on individuals and classes, the changes that would be wrought in social organization and social life. We have a quotation. I cannot play upon any stringed instrument, but I can tell you how of a little village to make a great and glorious city. Themistocles. Just an Athenian politician in general. Instead of the, and this is in Isaiah, instead of the thorn shall come up the fir tree, and instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle tree. And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. What is a myrtle tree? Moaning myrtle tree. That's a myrtle tree, huh? I learned that sycamore were misnamed aliso, an alder tree, by the Spanish. So that's an alder tree. I could see how you called that, how you would think that that's a sycamore. I mean, whatever. So aliso is the name, Spanish name for the sycamore, and aliso viejo is like the old sycamore. Anyway, chapter 1 of the effect upon the production of wealth. Take a moment and think. Answer the question yourself now that you know the remedy. The elder Mirabeau, we are told, ranked the proposition of Cunet to substitute one single tax on rent, the impôt unique. This is the French physiocrat Cunet. Impôt unique was their idea of the single tax. He ranked this proposition for all other taxes. The substitute the single tax on rent for all other taxes. He ranked this as a discovery equal in utility to the invention of writing or the substitution of the use of money for barter. I believe it. To whomsoever will think over the matter, this saying will appear an evidence of penetration rather than of extravagance. The advantages which would be gained by substituting for the numerous taxes by which the public revenues are now raised, a single tax levied upon the whole value of land, will appear more and more important the more they are considered. This is the secret which would transform the little village into the great city. with all the burdens removed which now oppress industry and hamper exchange. The production of wealth would go on with a rapidity now undreamed of. This, in its turn, would lead to an increase in the value of land, a new surplus which society might take for general purposes, and released from the difficulties which attend the collection of revenue, in a way that begets corruption and renders legislation the tool of special interests. Society could assume functions which the increasing complexity of life makes it desirable to assume, but which the prospect of political demoralization under the present system now leads thoughtful men to shrink from. What's crazy is this rapidity now I'm dreamed of production. It would only be even more rapid wealth creation in our society. You know, George is like mid-industrial revolution. We are post-industrial revolution and post-digital revolution. Our capacity to produce wealth is exponentially greater, and it is exponentially retarded by land monopoly. Consider the effect upon the production of wealth. This is why, like, as I don't know, I've been lately like really talking to friends and criticizing the fact that it seems to me that a bunch of smart, non-super rich, powerful landowners, right? Like the aristocracy was, you know, they didn't have to work, but then the second sons and third sons had to go become lawyers and doctors. And they figured out, oh, we're not as rich as our firstborn older brothers, um, but some of us are pretty smart and competent. So what if we make some organizations, some medical organizations or some law organizations to license and limit the number of lawyers and doctors that can exist. And so we will always be in high demand and we will be able to charge high rates. And so we'll be wealthier. And I see this today. My own father, he's a doctor, he makes a lot of money. Um, and I never quite understood how it was that he made so much more than other jobs. I mean, I understood that the job was very difficult and taxing, so it made sense to me that he should make somewhat more, but it seemed like quite a jump. And then realizing that we limit how many students can, or how many uh, individuals can get placed out of med school or whatever, get a residency to cap the number of doctors. That was a sort of realization. But the truth is, doctors should be making as much as they make, if not more, if labor were freed from land monopoly. But that should go for all of labor. All of labor should probably, if they were receiving their fair returns from their production, I don't know, twice as much as what they make. I don't know. And rent would be cheaper. Uh, I'm surprised. Yeah, I mean, so many modern Georgists are so afraid of being panacea mongers. I'm surprised I don't hear any like hyperbolic claims from Georgists that I would, you know, be like, oh, well, that's too much. But I don't even know of any modern Georgist who's like, if we implemented a single land value tax, everyone would be making $500,000. Everybody's, you know, rent would be lower, and we would just, you know, play games and do art and play sports and hang out and read and try to colonize the space, the outer space. I don't know. We need some uber optimist Georgists. It's not quite my style. To abolish the taxation which, acting and reacting, now hampers every wheel of exchange, these taxes, and presses upon every form of industry, all these taxes, would be like removing an immense weight from a powerful spring. Imbued with fresh energy, production would start into new life, and trade would receive a stimulus which would be felt to the remotest arteries. The present method of taxation operates upon exchange like artificial deserts and mountains. It costs more to get goods through a custom house than it does to carry them around the world. It operates upon energy and industry and skill and thrift like a fine upon those qualities. If I have worked harder and built myself a good house, while you have been contented to live in a hovel, the tax gatherer now comes annually to make me pay a penalty for my energy and industry by taxing me more than you. If I have saved while you wasted, I am mulcted. I remember like this word multiplication or yeah. Is there another multiplication? Not multiplication. Maybe I'm making it up. Mulct. I am mulct, while you are exempt. If a man build a ship, we make him pay for his temerity as though he had done an injury to the state. If a railroad be opened, down comes the tax collector upon it, as though it were a public nuisance. Well, the funny thing is, in this, so many of our builders and developers are also the landowners that that like when you hear about somebody who opened a railroad and got taxed for it, you're used to them having so much wealth and power. You don't connect the wealth and power being from all of their rent seeking and land monopoly. You tend to have bought into the idea that it's their railroading. And this is a problem with persuading people that somebody who has a mansion shouldn't be taxed for the mansion. It's like it's like I have these Georgist friends who want to heavily tax inheritance because there's just this basic assumption that wealthy people somehow, we don't know how, but somehow it's wrong that they have all that wealth. And the problem, and I mean, that's almost like the whole trick that the modern taxation system works on, which is like, yeah, the wealthy people, we don't know how, but somehow they have done, they have to pay some taxes, so let's just do it on this, on the income, on the capital gains, on, you know, on property. And so we think we're getting at it, but that's not how the tyranny is happening. It's happening because of the land monopoly. Anyway, um, if a man like we do want everything that the wealthy capitalists build and construct. We do want that. If a manufactory be erected, we levy upon it an annual sum which would go far toward making a handsome profit. We say we want capital, but if anyone accumulate it or bring it among us, we charge him for it as though we were giving him a privilege. We punish with a tax the man who covers barren fields with ripening grain. We fine him who puts up machinery and him who drains a swamp. Yeah. Yeah, going back to the inheritance, like we think that somebody who has a big estate, we just assume that that estate was ill-gotten. But in the proper organization of a government and taxation, wealth would not be ill-gotten. Oh, hey, Patrick. Good point. Is it like good wealth versus bad wealth? Would you characterize it that way? Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to look, at anyone's estate and tease out, oh, this was fairly gotten, this was unfairly gotten. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I just read Thomas Paine's Agrarian Justice pamphlet that he wrote in 1795. where he basically says, uh, no one born should have a worse life than the American Indian savage. And yet, all across Europe, and this is when he's trying to talk to the people in the midst of the French Revolution. He says, no one born into civilization today should be worse off than them, and yet a huge number of European poor people are worse off than them. And the problem is that not every person born in Europe can have the land to roam and hunt like a Native American. And that's impossible because each man would need 10 acres or something like that. And so that's why he proposed he basically said the problem is there's not enough land for everyone, and some people claimed land first, so society owes compensation to every new member, every new human born, and his remedy. So I feel like he diagnosed it very well, yet his remedy was faulty. His remedy was a 10% tax on on the estate of every human, everybody that died. You would take a full 10% of all their land, property, every form of wealth they had, and then you would distribute it as a one-time. It was like, I don't know, 15 pounds sterling when any citizen turned 21, and then starting at the age of 50, it was 10 pounds per year till you died. Uh, and that, probably was a lot better than tariffs and I mean tariffs was the big tariffs and stamp taxes that were most commonly implemented at that time. Um, but anyway, let's get back to George. How heavily these taxes burden production, only those realize who have attempted to follow our system of taxation through its ramifications. For as I have before said, the heaviest part of taxation is that which falls in increased prices. Yeah, and of course, the system of taxation in George's time was orders of magnitude less complex than all of the tax code that's been written since. But manifestly these taxes are in their nature akin to the Egyptian pasha's tax upon date trees. If they do not cause the date trees to be cut down, they at least discourage the planting. Yeah, um, I think George talked about this earlier. No, date. Yes, a tax on date trees, no hyphen here, imposed by Muhammad Ali caused the Egyptian fellahs to cut down their trees, but a tax of twice the amount imposed on the land produced no such result. To abolish these taxes would be to lift the whole enormous weight of taxation from productive industry. The needle of the seamstress and the great manufactory, the cart horse and the locomotive, the fishing boat and the steamship, the farmer's plow and the merchant's stock, would be alike untaxed. All would be free to make or to save, to buy or to sell, unfined by taxes, unannoyed by the tax gatherer. Instead of saying to the producer as it does now, the more you add to the general wealth, the more you shall be taxed, the state would say to the producer, be as industrious, as thrifty, as enterprising as you choose, you shall have your full reward. You shall not be fined for making 2 blades of grass grow where 1 grew before. You shall not be taxed for adding to the aggregate wealth. And will not the community gain by thus refusing to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs, by thus refraining from muzzling the ox that treadeth out the corn, by thus leaving to industry and thrift and skill their natural reward full and unimpaired? I think, George, that community would gain. by allowing such things. For there is to the community also a natural reward. The law of society is each for all, as well as all for each. No one can keep to himself the good he may do, any more than he can keep the bad. Every productive enterprise. Oh yeah, I just want to say the problems I identify with the inheritance tax are, I guess the biggest one is it's difficult to enforce. People will more and more be able to convert, especially in a more modern age, convert wealth to very difficult to track forms. And then you'll have a scaling industry of people trying to enforce the inheritance tax and people who help people hide their estate. You also incentivize a bunch of consumption towards the end of life. I mean, maybe you're okay with that. And you incentivize them giving away all of their wealth, sort of maybe even prematurely, so they, won't even have it for themselves if things go badly. Who knows? And then you also disincentivize them continuing to be productive into their later years, because if they're not going to be able to use what they create, and they're not going to be able to pass it on to the people they care most about, they probably aren't that incentivized to keep being productive if it's going to go to the community. Now you may say, oh, but it's only a 10% tax. Well, sure. I mean, then these effects are scaled down or scaled up in the exact amount that you want to tax, I suppose. And then finally, of course, it really, I don't know, it delays the effect of taxing land um, so much that I don't know how effectual. I mean, I think it'd still be effectual. I mean, I don't. No, I don't. I mean, if it's like, yeah, I don't. Like, you don't. Yeah, a 10% just estate tax is not it doesn't address the land speculation problem very directly, and it punishes all the other forms of income. And you just have the fungibility problem. People just, yeah, I don't know. Every productive enterprise, besides its return to those who undertake it, yields collateral advantages to others. If a man plant a fruit tree, his gain is that he gathers the fruit in its time and season. But addition to his gain, there is gain to the whole community. Others than the owner are benefited by the increased supply of fruit. The birds which it shelters fly far and wide. The rain which it helps to attract falls not alone on his field. And even to the eye, what is the rain which it helps to attract? What is this claim? I guess he means like that like that's true. You do have a thing with crops, like the rain falls, and if you haven't really planted anything, like the topsoil can just be eroded away. This is something I know efforts are going on in Africa to build some like what do they call the green wall, some like huge strip across the middle. Africa Green Wall Project. Is this? Yeah. So yeah, Uh, they're trying to. Yeah, this strip. They're trying to plant a bunch of these. Like, uh, I don't know where. Where the little. They're trying to plant here. This is what I've been seeing. They're trying to plant a bunch of these little plant structures. I'll read the comment in a second. in order to catch the rain and not let the soil erode, and then hopefully uh, it will then provide a bunch of good land like south of it. Um, this is the goal, planting all this. So perhaps this is sort of what George is referring to about how it will attract the rain which it helps to attract. Because I do not understand how planting any fruit would then actually attract cloud coverage and rain. I wonder if there's a way to show the numbers of how much land rent income happens per year in the U.S. or your state or your city so we can see how much exists overall and to shed some light on the ratio of what good versus bad wealth income that specific people and companies have. Though, as you said, it gets messy trying out. Ah, yes. So this is exactly what a lot of early Georgists really pushed for, especially in the UK, that like Churchill and David Lloyd George were really um, the people's budget, land value, U, UK. I don't know. Yeah, like the first thing they wanted to do was do a giant survey, and they thought this would help persuade the public if you went and surveyed and figured out how much land in England or just the UK in total was worth. So then you could estimate what a land tax would get you. I know that like I don't know, I was just on a Georgia's call yesterday. Fred Foldberry, yeah, see, estimated rental. I wasn't paying super close attention during it. But basically, some this Fred Foldberry is he is a PhD in economics and he was a Georgist. He claimed that around $5 trillion a year. I don't remember what year this was. I mean, this was a figure cited in a Georgist lecture yesterday. He claimed that 5 trillion a year could be collected from a 100% land value tax in the U.S., which is pretty close to our like what is our USG annual budget? I don't know. It's like 6 trillion. Oh, of right. Well, I don't know. You could definitely try to figure that out. That's true. You do miss out on what would be called imputed rent, which is uh, when people have empty parking lots that they're not actually putting to good use and no one's actually renting out that land and it's simply being speculated on. And then you also do have like owner users who don't actually pay. I mean, in a sense, they're paying themselves rent for the use. Like consider, my house, my with my dad. This could be renting for like $5,000 a month, something like that. Maybe 4,000. I don't know. No, if that other house is for that, yeah. Um, and so that wouldn't be if you're just gonna like ask everybody to report how much rent they pay. Georges would say that about half. Well, I mean everyone would sort of agree that about half of the market value of a suburban home goes towards land. Um, there's probably, a spectrum that it could be upon. So you'd say about half of the rent that would be paid for the house I am living in would be a land value rent. Um, but owner occupiers that wouldn't get accounted for when simply um, when simply actually asking renters everywhere how much they pay. But you could sort of break that down. Um, but yeah, those are, I mean, that was an early question. I mean, and again, like, the land is a big deal article by Lars. What is it a gameofrent.com? I think it's just game of rent. All right, Ken LVD. Is land really a big deal? I haven't read this, and maybe I never reread the whole thing, so I maybe have not reread this in a few years. Uh, so this has estimates like I was talking about for the total land value. Um, and yeah, I mean, if you feel like reading a bunch of more um, statistic-based and data-driven uh, analysis of the USA from good old Lars Doucet, although I think it's pronounced Lars Doucet. Maybe I'll read that after yeah, I'll reread this after well, how big is, ooh, how long we've been, oh, we've only going 30 minutes. I think I'll end here with my daily devotional. Um, and then maybe I will read Is Land a Big Deal? Uh, yeah, honestly, maybe maybe the talking point of like get rich quick should should be the Georgist move. Like, I mean, I believe it. I believe that we have unlocked the tech tree of Earth, and it is just waiting for us to share the technology together. And then we can each earn our own fortune. All right, end recording. Mm-hmm. Not this. HGDD, episode 90. We started book 9, chapter 1. Start. Warming up that hard drive from the solid state. Alright, we describe this as episode 90, book 9, chapter 1. Start. How rich we could be. Book X. Effects of the remedy. Effects of the remedy. Chapter I. Of the effect upon the production of whole wealth. All the other taxes retard production. We could free production, and its growth would be, all capital letters, rapid. Alright, the summary. Now, no. 190. Next. Publish. YouTube. Switch accounts. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Create. Upload. We should, oh. We're speed. I should like time myself doing this every time. Speed running. Good, as you should. See ya, Patrick. Maybe I'll just go for my walk now instead. I'll read that later. Today, victory parade. Publish. Any new comments? What are Let's look up transmitter licenses. What is this? Is this just what what is a transmitter license? What is a money? Is this like the ability to collect? Wait, what? A money transmitter, often referred to as a money service business (MSB), is a company or individual that facilitates the transfer of funds from one person or entity to another, often between disparate geographic locations and across international borders. These services typically involve receiving funds from customers and then transmitting them to a designated recipient. Money transmitters offer a variety of methods for transferring money, including via wire transfers and other EFTs. Mobile-based transfers the money transfers. They have to prevent that money laundering, terrorist financing, and other illicit activities. Yeah. Um, hmm. Do most businesses, international businesses, use their own or pay for their own licenses or go through a service? I was not even familiar with the term before Google just now. Is land a big a deal? 2021. Alright. I will see you next time. What is it?